Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock it team.
Alright, episode 23 of Fight Talk Down Under is brought to you by CMBT Nutrition. Go to cmbt.com.au for all your protein powder, protein bars, pre-workout, all that good stuff. We're also brought to you by Nutcare. More and more guys taking care of their health and well-being and grooming in general these days. It is 2022, and bare nuts hair removal is better and much easier than shaving. It's less painful and time-consuming than waxing, so it's a good way to take care of your nuts. So go to nutcare.com.au, use the promo code FIGHTNEWS for 10% off at the checkout. That's nutcare.com.au, promo code FIGHTNEWS. So welcome everyone. Of course, I'm Dan Meehan from Fight News Australia, if you don't know. And my co-host is the COVID kid, Justin Van Heerden, who's in ISO at the moment. So, how are you feeling?
Yeah, we're isolating. We're out here just relaxing. A couple of whiskeys deep tonight, not going to lie, but I feel like they're hard earned. I haven't really let that the celebration or anything happen yet for my fight and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, no, I might have a few whiskeys.
Yeah, solo celebration. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, ISO might as well do it. But yeah, we're here. We're recording a podcast. We're doing our favorite shit. We're talking about fighting, talking about fights. I normally don't have a filter. My filter's going to be less of a thing now, but that's all right. It's always good.
All right, Fight Talk Down Under unfiltered. Here it is. COVID can't get in our way.
Look, at this point, when it comes to this COVID situation, we talked about this off air. I've been succumbed to it now, so I'm in that group of just weak human beings, whereas yourself is surviving, staying strong. You're in the superior group of people that haven't gotten it. And as you said, at this point, science needs to take a look and step in.
That's right, yeah. Like we were talking about off air, I'm still a superior specimen, still untouched by the old COVID, and they really should be studying me at this point. I must be the last person left in Australia. I've been exposed that many times. I've been to the MCG. I've got an office from my day job where pretty much everyone's got it. And, it just hasn't touched me. We had it in our house. My daughter had it back in January. My sister-in-law's had it. We were literally out for dinner together. But, I'm just too good for COVID. It can't touch me at this point. So
number one on the pound for pound list against COVID.
That's right.
At this point.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. COVID's taken an L this time, and long may it continue. But we've got a fair bit of fights to talk about. There's enough COVID talk. We've got in the local news. We're obviously going to sort of the crux of this episode is going to be a preview of UFC 277. We've got a huge fight card on this weekend with obviously Kai Kara France and versus Brandon Moreno. Obviously Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena, the rematch, among others. But before that, we've had some. A local in action over the weekend. Minnie T. Williams was back in action again against Geelong in one championship, and once again he's gotten it done. It was a bit of a one-hitter quitter in the end. He's cracked him with a right hand and put him down. So it's his third fight this year. He had two sort of big wins over Krudej and Kawahara so far this year, and. The opponent this time, he had some fast hands. He was certainly up for the fight. He was, Minnie T was sort of bashing him with the leg kicks, and the opponent was kind of slapping his leg and inviting him to sort of keep kicking. So there's no shortage of arrogance in this guy. He was even sort of humming during their exchanges. So he was certainly up for the fight, but in the end, Minnie T was a far more crisp striker. So what did you make of Minnie T's performance?
Yeah, it was cool. It was like kind of what we expected, what we talked about when we previewed it. Like, I just wanted to see him bash someone, and that's what we got. And, the way the finish happened, it was beautiful. Just cracked him clean in the jaw. Old mate did the little chicken dance and fell over, and then obviously got put away. So that's what you want to see. You want to see Minnie T keep the momentum up. So, I mean, what's that, like his third fight this year, another stoppage. Dude's just out here fucking killing it. Seems like for a guy that's his size, the man sure packs a punch because he's touching these people and he's just putting them away. I did see that afterwards he was celebrating with a well-earned bottle of rum after the fact with Ryan Gray, and seeing him celebrating in there with a bunch of the fighters that fought on the card. So that's what we want to see. We want to see these people go out there, put on these great performances, put people away, and then celebrate the right way afterwards.
Absolutely, he does like a drink, Mini T. So yeah, it's not a surprise to hear that there was celebrations happening afterwards, and well deserved as well. Like, it was another good performance from him. He's won 5 in a row in MMA now. 3 of those are in one championship. And he just looks better and better with every fight. We know that he had a year off before the Rodtang fight last year, and he just looks in better shape every time he gets in there, and he just looks cleaner and crisper. So he's keen on that strawweight Muay Thai belt. He's sort of called out Joseph Laziri in sort of the post fight there. We know that his goal is to be the two sport sort of champion. He wants an MMA title and a Muay Thai title to go with it, and obviously one championship affords him that opportunity. So he's getting up there. He's doing his work. So what do you reckon of his chances there?
Yeah, obviously that's going to be a tough matchup. Obviously, it's not like he's just going to go out there and we'd want to see him go out there and just outclass the dude and just put him away early and just keep putting on a show like he has been. But obviously, different sort of format, different caliber of opponent. So I'm expecting that it's going to be, if that gets thrown together, it's going to be sort of a tough fight for him. But do I think he can get it done? 100%. Like I said, he seems to touch people, and when he touches them, he seems to put them away. So I just think that we're going to see much more of that, and especially in that capacity where you're not going to get double-legged when you are starting to put the kicks and the punches and that together and get that momentum like he has been. So I think that's going to, speak volumes, because it's different when if you're like primarily sort of fighting in MMA and you go to like boxing, like pure boxing, and you fight like a high level boxer. It's going to be, the stance is different, the range is different, things can be a bit weird. But, kickboxing kind of translates, and Muay Thai kind of translates a bit better, because it's not like you're unaware of the kicks, you're not unaware of the elbows, you're not unaware of all those weapons being utilized. The main difference is like someone's not just going to double leg you when you're coming in throwing combinations. So, and obviously the clinching side of things, but he's obviously, Mini T is well adept in those areas. So I feel like he's going to be fine and be able to go out there and put on a show.
Absolutely, yeah. It remains to be seen what sort of opportunity sort of comes for him. He's obviously hasn't fought that many times in the Muay Thai division over there. So I guess we'll wait and see what one championship's got in store for him. But he's doing the right things. He had an incredible fight against Rodtang. He's been winning fights ever since, and I'm sure one championship. He's got the attention of one championship. So it's going to be fun to see how his journey unfolds.
You just have to kind of just do what he's doing regardless. He's performing, he's taking the opportunities that are being like awarded to him, and just making himself undeniable. And that's what you got to do. You keep fighting, keep winning, keep putting people away. It makes you undeniable, and then you can start demanding and taking the things that are there that you want to go after. I mean, that's just how it is.
Absolutely, and being active is a good way to do that. I actually watched an interview that he did with MMA Soccer earlier today, and he sort of mentioned that he's one of those guys who's all or nothing. He has to sort of stay in the gym, and he has to sort of have fights coming up. Otherwise, he kind of just falls off the wagon a little bit. He kind of sort of loses motivation. He likes a drink, he likes to sort of go out and those sorts of things, and he kind of gets down those rabbit holes when he doesn't have fights coming up. So it sounds like he wants to stay active, and that's a good way, like you say, to make yourself undeniable. And eventually he's just going to rack up enough wins that he's ranked in potentially in both sports, and they have to give him what he's asking for. Yeah, sweet. Also sort of coming up, an Australian representative over on Dana White's Contender Series. We've got the Turkish Delight. Shannon Ross is on next week, and it'll be next Wednesday Australian time, but obviously we'll be recording sort of around that time, so we're not really going to be able to kind of preview it before it happens. So we'll talk about it now. He's obviously got his opportunity next week. He's taking on Vinicius Salvador from Brazil. So I did a little bit of research on Salvador. He's fought mostly in Brazil. All of his wins, he's got a 13-4 record. You can see where this is going, can't you? He's got a 13-4 record. All of them are by KO. So he looks like he's a banger, but when you do a bit of a deeper dive, I don't know if you've sort of had a look at this yourself, but the standard of opposition is questionable. Like 3 of his last 4 wins were against fighters on debut in Brazil, so it is sort of a bit of a question mark. We know that you can obviously only fight the people that are in front of you, and he's been putting them away. But when you talk about the standard of opposition, like Shannon Ross has sort of fought sort of some of the best fighters in Australia. He's fought Steve Erceg, he's fought Paul Loga, he's fought Mokhtarian. He's a former Eternal champion. He's been there and done that. But so it's a bit interesting on paper. But yeah, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, did the old deep dive on old Bud's record. Bit sus. Some tomato cans there, if you ask me. Just for context, people, like, do that when you see these, and especially if you're going to be betting on fights and stuff like that, if you're watching like from across the board, from a local level to the UFC, if you see these people come in with these sort of crazy records, do a bit of a suss out. Like, I kind of said this in the lead up to my fight with Alavi. 7-0, but if you have a little look into his record, there's 2 people on his record that are like decent fighters that he fought, and that's Rodolfo Marquez, based on his experience level, not the current state that he's in. Stiff Breezer knocked that dude out. But the other person is Cody Barnwell. And, those are the 2 fights you can look at on that dude's record and go, okay, that's legit. All the other ones, it's kind of like, whatever. That's why I kind of stress to people. So, like, people might be looking at this fight for Shannon and be like, oh, my God, look at this dude's record. He's a beast. It's going to be a tough fight. It very well might be. The dude might be handy and he might be talented and it might be a tough matchup and, going to get there and have a competitive, tough fight. Who knows? We're going to see like that's going to play out next week. But the point is, you got to look into these people's records. You got to like take it for what it is at face value. I spoke to you about this. I kind of did a comparative thing with combined records of opponents between myself and a few other people. For context, mine's of all my opponents, something like 89 and 62. Some of the other people, it's squirrely, a bit weird.
Not so much, yeah.
Yeah, not so much. So, that's just sort of what you got to do. But at the end of the day, like, I get it. I get it. You get to a certain point and you got to do that. Like, old mates, people around him, obviously they threw that together, and now and if it's the promotion, I think from memory, the promotion that he fought on is run by Waleed Ismail, who, as we've known, has had a few fighters that have gotten into the UFC, and some of them have done well, others have not, because they've had that sort of pathway set up for them where they've been built up. They look like these crazy prospects with these crazy records, and then they get in there and they get exposed. And that always happens. We've seen that across the board. How many people have we seen from Australia that's happened, where they've been built up, they've gotten fast-tracked with these matchups that they've been given, they get to the UFC and they get bashed and they get exposed, because now you're actually fighting someone who's legit. And it's a combination of things. It's the fact that you have this false sense of security and confidence because you're not realistic with yourself, and you have people around you that are sort of building you up and blowing you up. And then the fact that you're actually fighting someone who's a legit high-level opponent, and now you've got to, you can't bullshit your way out of it when you're in there. If you're standing across to someone and they're legit and they're trying to knock your fucking head off, you can't fake it till you make it, really, at that point.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess like Dana White's Contender Series is kind of it's kind of about sort of unearthing some of these gems, and sometimes you might find some guys from the Brazilian countryside that have just bashing debuting fighters that are actually just waiting for their opportunity that are actually world class. But like you say, you got to do your research, because on paper the record looks a bit suspect. So we'll see how it plays out. It's probably a guy that sort of plays well into Shannon Ross's strengths. I would have thought, if he, it looks like he's a stand-up fighter just from what we can tell on on what we can sort of tell from the record. But it could be an entertaining fight.
Well, regardless of how mate, what his sort of outcome of plan is or skill level sort of amounts to be, we're going to find that out. Like I said, it's going to get exposed regardless. But I know Shannon's been doing a fuckload of his camp, or most of his camp, with my old coach at Southside MMA, Paul Stolier. So he's like, he's going to be coming in, prepared for whatever Olmo's going to throw at him. And, especially when we come to, we talk about the grappling and the wrestling and the cage work and that, he's going to be, quite prepared and adept to utilize those sort of, areas to get a win and kind of grind this dude out if need be. he's sharing the mats with some talented people, and that's something there's emphasis on. It's no secret that, Pasha being from the Ukraine, wrestling, grappling, those sort of things are, quite high on the old priority list. But, Shannon can strike too. Let's not get it twisted. The dude's a complete mixed martial artist. But for sure in those areas, I feel like he's going to be able to, find some openings and be able to put a bad beating on this dude if it goes there.
Absolutely, and we'll see how it plays out, and we'll recap that one. Obviously, next week's episode is going to be recorded before the fight takes place, so we'll be taking care of it on the week after, which will be episode 25. So
25.
We'll stay tuned to episode 25 to see how Shannon Ross gets on, and obviously tune into UFC Fight Pass on Wednesday morning as well to catch the fight if you're around. Now, one thing. I was actually going to talk about this off air, but has anyone heard from Steve Erceg? Do we know what happened with Steve Erceg? Did you do any digging?
I've asked questions. I've hit people up. I've done the old deep dive investigation in many ways as I can, and I've bribed a couple of people. I've done a few things and have come back with zero. No idea.
Yeah, absolute donuts. Obviously, Steve Erceg doesn't listen to our podcast, which is disappointing. But if you do happen to be listening to this episode, Steve, let us know. Hit us up. We'd love to know sort of what happened with the Contender Series opportunity. If it's still on the cards for later in the season, if anyone knows, let us know, and we'll report it in episode 24. But he was supposed to be originally scheduled, I believe, to be on this week's episode of Dana White's Contender Series, but for whatever reason, the fight hasn't come together. So see what happens there. But the real reason we're sort of here is UFC 277's on this weekend. It's a big card. It's got some Anzacs involved. So we'll get stuck in. The first one is why are you smirking? What's going on here?
We're feeling good, Dan. We're feeling good. We're ready to go.
Oh, this is a good one. Look at him. He's fights in the bank. He's been at home all week, just pacing back and forth, waiting for recording day. So he's primed and ready to go. So. We'll get stuck in UFC 277. The first Anzac on the card is, of course, Blood Diamond, someone that you've shared the mats with. Taking on Ryan Kosey, who we know is a Dana White's Contender Series alumni. He's got that sort of wrestling pedigree. This was a fight that was supposed to take place a few months ago, but Blood Diamond suffered an injury. So now it's back on for this week. So what do you make of this matchup and Blood Diamond's chances of stuffing the takedown and doing his work standing up?
Yeah, well, they've obviously not been, I guess, sympathetic to the outcome of the first fight, and they've just handed him another wrestler. But, that's neither here nor there. So I'd imagine that he's been doing the work with the boys at City Kickboxing and the team and Eugene, and everyone's been putting him through his paces. As I said, after his fight, when he was here and I got to share the match with him, I was actually pleasantly surprised by the level of wrestling and grappling that he has. Because obviously watching the fight and never having interacted with the guy and trained with him and sort of sharing the mats with him, watching that and it's also your UFC debut, all that sort of stuff. It's a pretty crazy process, but but even watching some of his other fights, like the fight against Dimps and stuff like that, there's obviously people are going to try and take you down. They know what your pedigree is on the feet. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised at the actual, level that he's at with that sort of stuff. Like he can obviously do that. So I kind of wrote it off as a bit of, the UFC jitters, all that sort of stuff. Just the concept of being on such a crazy card, making your debut, all that sort of stuff. But I think he would have gone back to the drawing board, would have done the work. And I'm expecting him to come out there and hopefully get the opportunity to showcase his skills and abilities. And, if all I'm saying is if he stuffs this dude's takedowns and keeps it standing, it's not a matter of if he's going to put this guy away, it's when. Because he's very hard to deal with on the feet and does shit that I still can't grasp and concept. And, it's just the guy's striking is so freaky. It's so weird. Like people love watching. If you're not sort of aware of Bloods and what his skills and abilities are and stuff like that, obviously go watch some of his kickboxing fights and that. But like if you're a fan of watching Adesanya striking and you're kind of like mesmerized by what he's able to do in there, just wait until you see the opportunity for this guy to be able to do that. And especially with those little gloves, holy shit, can he put people away if he touches them? So I feel like he's going to be able to do that. I'm excited. He's fighting, his teammates challenging for an interim title. The energy's high from what I can see in the fight week stuff so far. He seems like he's cruising through fight week. Obviously, they got, Geordie and Ryan from the, the TFD team over there helping them with their fight week sort of stuff. So the boys look like they're cruising through. Everything's flowing together. And I'm expecting that Bloods is going to kick it off with a pretty convincing win. And I'm going to say that it's going to be a round 2 knockout. I feel like round 1's going to be a bit iffy. It's going to be very wrestling heavy. Bloods is going to have to do some work. But after that, I feel like he's going to be able to, pick him apart and put him away.
Yeah, I think it'd be smart for Kosi to sort of try and take him down early, particularly early on in the fight. It's going to be, obviously Blood Diamond's a dangerous guy to stand and trade with, particularly if you're, if you're not on that level. So, but we saw in Blood's UFC debut, he sort of got a bit outclassed on the ground, and I don't know if, like you say, if it was UFC jitters or whatever, but and again, like you mentioned, he's got a wrestler this time, so they've sort of thrown him to the wolves once again. So, sort of, how much can you take away from a loss like that, and then, go back to the drawing board and sort of prepare yourself? Like, how much would he have taken away from a loss like the one he suffered in his first UFC outing?
Look, you're going to hear people always say, like, you either win or you learn, and for the most part, that's true. But when it comes to a fight like that, and that's why I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it was just the situation, the nerves, the build-up of it all, because watching that fight, how it went down, you can't really take much out of it. It's not like you can sit there and identify and be like, okay, well, this is what I need to improve on. Like, the whole thing was a kind of throw it away type deal. So, I'm sure he's training all areas and doing it quite frequently, and doing it in a way that he's sort of immersing himself into it, because, you can't be fighting in the UFC if you're not going to do that. Like, you got to do that. So I have no doubt that he is. But from a performance like that, I don't think there was much to take out of it. I think it was just like, all right, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get back in the gym, get another fight, and then just kind of go, okay, I'm actually going to showcase my abilities this time, and I'm going to do whatever I can to go out there and get this win. Because that's sort of the thing. I think, people put so much pressure on themselves, especially when it comes to making the UFC debut and all that sort of shit. Like, people put so much stock into that. They go, everyone's like, I want to get in the UFC. And then they put so much stock into making their debut that they kind of just hype it up to such a point where they're putting like championship level pressure on themselves, and you're not even fighting for a fucking world title. So it's like, you don't need to do that. At the end of the day, like, obviously, it's a big deal, and it's something to soak in, and it's crazy, and you're only going to have your debut. You only get one UFC debut, but you only get to do that once for the first time ever. So I can see that in some point, but I feel like that catches out a lot of people. And it obviously caught him out, but I feel like this time around he's going to be able to go out there and get this first win, and then we're going to see him sort of just go from strength to strength. Obviously, the division he's in, moving forward, there's going to be a lot more wrestlers that he's going to have to deal with. So I'd imagine it's going to be something where the emphasis is always going to be, because, like, at the end of the day, the dude can fight. Like, if he gets in shape, he can fight. And, his striking is so good. So he's one of those people where you can almost just put all the emphasis on the keeping the fight standing, or just working the wrestling, working the grappling, doing that sort of stuff, because it's not like it's going to take away from his striking ability. Like, that's going to be like walking to him. That's always going to be in his back pocket, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together for this second fight.
Absolutely. And also was supposed to be on the card with Justin Tafa this week, but it looks like he's pulled out for undisclosed reasons a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't able to get to the bottom of it. This has obviously had a fantastic journalistic week this week, because I wasn't able to get an answer on it. So I don't know if you've sort of heard anything on what the situation was with Justin Tafa and what's going on there.
No, not a peep. I was surprised by that when I saw that he wasn't fighting. I was a bit confused, but I do know that he's, from what I can see and what I've been seeing, I think he's in Thailand at the moment. And it looks like he's training, because I did see that he my good buddy Trent Gurdon put up a few things with him. Where he was hanging out with him and stuff like that in Thailand. So it looks like he's training. So I don't know, maybe, yeah, that makes it a bit confusing because he's in Thailand and stuff like that. But who knows if it's an injury or if it's something else, who knows? But it's a bit weird. Bit weird. Don't have any answers. Bit confused.
It is a strange one. Maybe it was just a visa issue. We've seen that before with fighters from that stable.
Look, let me just fill people in on this whole visa situation thing and just clarify a few things. So when you go to America, especially, getting a visa and that, for the most part, if you're based somewhere like Australia, New Zealand, place like that, it's a lot easier than if you're from other countries. But no matter where you're from, if you have a past, that makes it a bit hard. And I don't know Justin Tuff personally. I don't know his life story. I don't know his background. But if I was a betting man and it is a visa issue, I can almost guarantee it's because he has an assault charge on his record somewhere. So that kind of would be a lot of the time. It's for something like shit like that is why people have visa issues. A lot of the time. Other times it's just random, like just coincidence type things and little shit from I guess from the promotions end, like we kind of saw with Aaron Blackie and like we kind of saw with BJ Bland and shit like that, like where they've had these issues. But a lot of the time when someone's like, oh, visa issues, it's probably because they've done some shit and they need to like sort of sort that out and declare it or make the fucking consul aware of it and sort that out. So yeah, a lot of the time, guys, if you see someone with visa issues, take it with a grain of salt because you never know. You never know,
and we certainly don't know for sure what the situation is with Justin Tuff, and it might just be it might just have been a timing thing. I know that there are some guys that have had issues with with the consulate, I think, or with the American embassies or whatever. I don't know if it's I don't know if they just need to put it in earlier or I'm not sure exactly how it works. But we have seen a bunch of fighters from that same stable have had visa issues. So I don't know if they're just not putting in applying for visas at the right time. It could potentially be that, but we don't know. But hopefully Justin Tuff is, he's back in the ring because he has fought in the US before, hasn't he? So he's obviously managed to gain entry. So potentially it maybe isn't a sort of something in a skeleton in the closet or whatever. But it may not even be a visa issue. We're kind of just speculating at this point, but hopefully we do see him in the in the octagon sometime soon because he's always fun to watch, and it's never nice to see fights fall over and sort of at the last minute or close to fight week. So
100%.
Also on the card we've got another Anzac there, Kai Kara France, obviously representing New Zealand. He's fighting Brandon Moreno for the interim UFC flyweight title while we're waiting for Figgy. So he's coming off some wins against Cody Garbrandt and Askar Askarov. So he's in good form. Brandon Moreno's coming off 3 fights against Davidson Figueiredo, which is kind of crazy to think. You look at his record; it's just fig, just 3 in a row. He's gone 1-1-1, so they've still got unfinished business, those two, but. In the meantime, he's got Kai Kara France, who he's beaten before at UFC 275 back in December 2019. Kai's gone 4-1 since. So, what do you make of his chances this time around?
Completely different fight. Both guys have evolved so much. Both guys have improved so much, and both guys are on a whole nother level. And especially, both guys have stayed active in the time they've kept fighting. They've pushed through. They haven't taken any sort of time away. And Kai's gone from strength to strength and. Like we kind of spoke about when he was going into that Askar Askarov matchup, like I was thinking, fuck, man, I don't like this. But he went out there and did his thing. And like I said, after that fight, I'm fucking never picking against that dude ever again. So, I feel like he's going to go out there and fucking put on a show. I feel like Kai and Marino are going to get in there and they're just going to bang it out. I feel like they're just going to scrap it out for however long it takes for someone to get put away. But we've seen Kai now in these last recent sort of fights where it has gotten into the wrestling and grappling exchanges. He's shown a vast improvement in ability to sort of defend and deal with those areas, wear out the storm, stay patient, stay calm, get the fight back to where he needs it to be, and then just pull people away. or basically just beat the shit out of him. So I feel like he can do that. Marino is obviously well-rounded. He's shown he can knock you out. He's shown he can choke you out. But that's obviously going to be always going to be the, I guess, area to take it to with fighters from CKB. People are always going to look to engage in the grappling and the wrestling. It's like just never not going to be a thing. Even if you're training wrestling, grappling every fucking day, if your gym's called City Kickboxing, people are going to try and take you down. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be an entertaining fight. I don't see it, to be honest, I don't see it finishing before 4 rounds. I feel like it's going to go at least 4 rounds before we see someone get put away. But for sure, at any moment, someone could go to sleep, obviously, or get caught. But I just see it being a highly entertaining fight. I'm excited for it. I'm pumped. I'm actually, it's going to be probably one of the most high-level flyweight fights that we're going to see outside of that we've seen recently with Figueiredo and Marino.
Yeah, on paper it looks fantastic, doesn't it? It's just a couple of game fighters. Like, they're not guys that get put away. They're both guys that have got solid tanks and not afraid to sort of throw down. So on paper it looks a fantastic matchup, and it's going to be interesting to see how Kai gets on, because Marino's he's a game fighter. He's high volume. He's in your face. So I guess interesting to see if Kai can sort of use the movement that he has and pick him apart.
It's going to be, and especially, if Bloods goes out there, does his job, that's going to give Kai that boost too, because he's going to be able to draw the energy off that. We always heard about these CKB guys and the everything like that, man. They're always pretty big on that, having the energy and to draw on from each other. And, Kai and Bloods are going to have a decent support crew. I believe Volk's going over for the fight. I'd imagine Adesanya is going to be there. I'm pretty sure Hooker's there. So they're going to have a decent support crew there to support the boys. So the energy is going to be high, the momentum is going to be high. So, it's setting itself up to be the night that we see another Anzac go out there and claim some UFC gold, and then it sets up obviously a massive fight, to unify the belt later on with Figgy. But yeah, I'm hyped, I'm excited, I'm pumped, I'm confident that Kai's going to go out there and perform, and we're going to be recapping this and talking about our latest Anzac UFC champion.
Yeah, I hope so. And how much of a difference does that make when you've got a teammate on the card? I don't know sort of how many sort of cards you've shared with stablemates, but how much of a difference does that make? For you, if your teammate goes out there and wins or loses, how much of an impact does that have on your mindset?
Look, for some people, it's destructive, completely destructive, and they can't put it aside. They can't be like, oh, okay, that's shit, but that doesn't affect me. I don't have that problem. I've fought on a card with multiple teammates. I fought on a card one time with, I think, 8 of my teammates, and 7 of them lost, 1 of them won, and then I still had to go out there and perform. And you can't get hung up on that. And Izzy kind of spoke on that. It's regardless if someone wins or loses, once that's done, you kind of just have to put that off. I'll deal with that later on. I'll address that later on. No matter what the situation is, whether they won, lost, draw, it doesn't matter. I got to do my job. I just got to be focused on what I got to do. But in saying that, that's something that I guess you're either just innately going to have, and people, or something that you got to sort of get to eventually and start, making part of your routine, that you can't let those other things affect you, especially when you're in a position like Kai is, where you're fighting for an interim world title. You can't let shit like outside things affect you, whether Bloods wins or loses. That's what I mean. It's much easier to process and put aside a win than it would be a loss, but at the same time, it's more, I guess, crucial that if you, say for God forbid Bloods loses, you got to be able to go, definitely need to not worry about that. I got to go out there and do my job. But and at the same time, there's the other flip side of the coin. If he wins and wins in a spectacular way, especially, you can't allow yourself to get too worked up from that. You can't allow yourself to be to get sucked into that too much. You still just got to stay focused on what you got to do and, go through your normal routine. If you can walk out to a fight and it feels like you're just about to have a round at a sparring session like you would in the gym, I feel like that's optimal. That's perfect. You know, if you can do that, then you're going to go out there and perform, and things are just going to come together. But like, it's a fine line, and for some people, it's easier to navigate than others.
Yeah, I guess they have a like a tight knit group at City Kickboxing, but at the end of the day, it's still an individual sport, isn't it? So you've still got to go out there and focus on yourself and be your own sort of be your own athlete, I guess. And yeah, it's easier for some than others, like you say.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, you got to like at a certain point, your teammates, your coaches, everything that all just kind of fades away, and there's going you could get put in a situation where it's like you just got to do it. You just got to perform. You just got to rely on yourself. You just got to dig deep. And I like to use the example, Adesanya when he fought Calvin Gastelum, going out for that 5th round, like ain't nobody else matter at that point. Your coaches, your teammates, nobody. That's all just about what's in there and digging deep and just performing and relying on yourself and just self-belief. So, and especially in title fights, that shit comes out more often than not. So I feel like, yeah, he's certainly someone that has the ability to do that. So I feel like he's going to be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of title fights, the main event, we may as well cover that one off. It's the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion Juliana Pena is defending her title. Obviously, Amanda Nunes, longtime champion, gets her immediate rematch. She shocked the world. She stopped Amanda Nunes in the in the first fight. So what do you reckon? Can will lightning strike twice?
Look, I'm going to give her the sort of respect that she's earned, I guess, by winning the belt and being a champion, and think that, yep, it's certainly possible that she can do it. She can go out there and just perform again. Part of me, has got to take it for what it is. We've seen Amanda be dominant for so long, and then, she kind of looks like she had a bit of an off night and then obviously loses, but still she lost, she got beat, all that shit aside. But, I'm expecting that they're both going to come in in the best shape they're in, the best mindset that they're in, and, both ready to sort of go out there and die to try and win, because that's what we want to see. I want to see them go out there and scrap it out and give us like a continued sort of pace and performance of what we saw in the first fight. Like they come out, just started swinging, like they were just scrapping really, and Pena just walked her down and was just more than willing to trade with her. And then obviously once it hit the mat, she kind of got the choke in with no hooks, and Amanda kind of just was like, all right, I'm done. So, are we going to see history repeat itself? Are we going to see her, be able to put Amanda away again? It's certainly possible. Do I think that that's going to happen? Probably not. I feel like it's going to be a different fight this time, and I feel like it's going to be probably if the way I see it sort of playing out, I feel like this is going to go to a decision. I feel like it's going to be a gritty sort of fight. I feel like both girls are going to cop some damage. Both girls are going to have to dig deep, but it's ultimately just going to come down to who can play that chess match at a, I guess, slower pace in terms of getting the opponent to the spot where they need them to be at a later point in the fight to be able to find success that they need to find to be able to get the win. I don't see this being like a quick night in the office for either girl.
Yeah, it's probably, it could certainly play out that way. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I think, if Amanda Nunes is in shape and sort of, I guess, switched on mentally, then I think she's still the best in the world. I don't think really there's too many out there that can really challenge her. So I guess that's the question. If she's in shape, if she's ready to go, if she's found that mojo that was apparently missing last time around, then I think she gets it done as well. But Juliana Pena, she came in there, she was focused and she got it done last time. So it's hard to bet against her. But if I was a betting man, it'd be Amanda Nunes for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to bet against her even now. Like even after that last fight, that loss, I'm probably if I was to bet on this fight, which I probably will be, I'm probably going to bet with Amanda. I'm going to stick with with my confidence in the fact that she's going to come in ready to go and be able to go out there and perform. It's going to make it a completely different fight.
Absolutely, yeah. And I rewatched her fight with Cyborg earlier today. So with that fresh in my mind, it's hard to pick against her because that was an unbelievable performance.
Yeah, that was brutal finish too. So, I feel like if Amanda comes in, she's on, she's ready, she's firing. She's got the power to put people away and hurt people. So I feel like, if the first couple of exchanges are gonna kind of set the pace and set the tone for the fight. And we're either it's gonna start playing out very early on the way I sort of see it going, or Amanda's gonna hit her a few times and we're gonna see Juliana not be on board, not like it, and we're going to be able to tell whether it's going to be just, whether Amanda's back to being Amanda Nunes or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll certainly, the signs will be there early on, I think. But it's gonna be a fun one to watch play out. But we got a couple of fan questions this week. We're going to try and squeeze two in. So the first one comes from Luke Trahair, who's from he's a writer at Eternal, I think, and he might have a podcast or might have his own little blog or something, which I've forgotten the name of. So I'll have to try and dig that up unless you've got it handy.
Nah, I've dealt with him in the capacity for the Eternal sort of stuff, so I know he does that. He's for sure doing the articles and stuff like that for Eternal. Super nice dude too. Luke's a super nice dude.
There you go. Yeah, I'll have to find out what his other little side hustle is, and we'll give it a plug next week. But Luke asks, what are your thoughts on open scoring?
Yeah, fuck. This has obviously been a hot topic in recent months, with especially with some of the judging decisions we've seen. Especially, it seems like in recent times we've seen some it's shocking judging has been a thing that's always going to be part of the sport and always has been. But fuck, man, like recently it seems like we've seen some shockers. So open scoring. Do I think it's going to change that or be for the better? More than likely, but are things still going to be squirrely and end up in a weird way? Probably. Because at the end of the day, like open scoring seems like a cool idea. You're gonna know what's up as the fight's going, but at the same time, is that gonna be at a detriment to the people fighting? It could be. If they're aware of that, that's the kind of shit where we could we could see fighters kind of start doing the smart thing, staying safe, and then we're going to see, then are people going to turn around and be like, well, we don't want to watch fights like this. Is that going to affect the casual viewership of the sport? Potentially. Or the other side, is someone going to take a super unnecessary risk to try and really get after it and cop some brutal brain damage? And then are we going to see fighters start, getting put away a lot more often, a lot more frequently, just because their style of fighting is kind of score-wise demands that for them to be on the, start from behind. In a sense, there's fighters like that are sort of fighting, even fighters who are like defensively sound and disciplined, like give away the first couple of rounds to kind of, find their moments, make their reads, build up the data that they need. Like Petr Yan's a great example of that. He doesn't win the first round of any of his fights because he gives it away almost to try and build up the data, find the reads that he needs to make to be able to go from there. Is him knowing that he's in a fight and behind significantly going to impact that? Is he going to get a bit more overzealous with his pursuit to sort of get himself back in the fight or look for a finish? Is he going to get, clipped and put away? All these things are factors that are going to come into it. But as a whole, just looking at it at surface level, I think open scoring is a good idea, because certainly what we got now is just not working as good as it could be. Is it going to be the sort of be-all, end-all? Probably not. It's going to be like a step in the right direction, but things still need to be adjusted and built onto to be able to find what's going to be the ultimate successful scoring system for MMA. Because right now, using the 10-point must system for boxing, it's just not a thing.
Yeah, I think like open scoring, it's sort of like you say, it's a bit of a romantic idea, like sort of having a scoreboard there and knowing what the score is. Like any other sport is kind of like a bit of a romantic idea. But again, I think you kind of touched on this as well. I don't think it's going to save us from the fuckery that goes on with judging. Like if you've got a bad judge there, then you've got a bad judge there. Are they going to it's not going to change the way they score the fight just because people know about it. It might open them up to sort of live criticism, but again, they're kind of locked away. They're doing their judging. So I don't know that it's really going to save us from the dodgy decisions. It's just that we're going to see them unfolding throughout the fight. And I don't know that the promotions will love it because, again, I think you touched on this as well. If a fighter's 2 rounds up going into the 3rd round, then they might just be happy to sort of hold, take down, hold, sort of stall out, just kind of, coast their way to a win, which is something that we know that the UFC hates that sort of stuff, and they reward people for sort of exciting fights and things like that. But you've also got to win your fights. So I think there might be some fights like that where that suffer. With something like open scoring, so I don't know that it's really going to solve the issue. I think more the issue is probably just the like you say, again, like you touched on there, the 10-point must system that's been transplanted from boxing. It's just I don't know that it quite works. Do I know exactly what the answer is? Not particularly, but at least in one championship, they do something a little bit differently where they score the fight as a whole. So I don't know, maybe there could be a bit of a test case there for scoring like that. But I don't know that we're ever going to convince the athletic commissions in the US and Australia and sort of the bigger sort of Western markets that that's a good idea. So maybe open scoring could be a step in the right direction.
And something like that's something that people need to remember too. Like if people don't know how it works, like you get your show money and you get a win bonus. So like you get a certain amount of money for just showing up to fight, and if you win, you get a win bonus. All right. And obviously you look at some of these fighters and look, fighter pay and things like that in the UFC and this or whatever, it's a topic of discussion we're going to talk about. That's neither here nor there. But we've spoken about this before where I see you see articles where it's like, oh, Francis Ngannou's like complaining about fighter pay, but the dude's like just got paid like $500,000 and complains that he doesn't have money and he needs like more money and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it all depends on the setup that each fighter has. Like I've seen some fighters come out and speak, and then you work out the percentages and the figures. Like they obviously get paid to fight, they win, then they get a bonus. Then tax gets taken off that. Then you see some of the figures, like they're paying their management like 40%, and then they're paying their agent like 40% or 20%, or and it's like, fuck, man. Like, do you even have a brain to work out who's really are people helping you work this out, and you can see what is the best deal for you? So all that factored in, if you're a fighter who is in a situation where it's probably not the best case scenario for you, it's going to be more evident that you go out there and perform and get a win and get a win bonus any way you can. And if you're aware of the fact that you're already winning the fight and can then just take the safe route to victory, 100% you're going to do that. And to be honest, no one's going to hold that against you, because at the end of the day, that's how you make your money, and that's what you're trying to do to put food on the table for you and your people and whoever's close to you. So that's something that's like a whole nother factor that ties into judging in general, especially when the judging's fucking terrible and someone wins a fight that shouldn't have won a fight. These are all factors that sort of go hand in hand. So it's not going to be just people will say, oh, well, they should fix the judging issue. It's not that easy. And there's so many other factors that tie into it that you can't just eliminate.
Absolutely, yeah. There's just so many, and I think that's why it's so difficult to solve this issue, because MMA is just, it's a sport with so many variables. There's so many sort of different kind of aspects in mixed martial arts, between striking and grappling, kind of two completely different disciplines that are sort of molded into one sport. So how it's sort of scored properly is it's just something that's kind of difficult to solve. And a lot of the judges, particularly like in the US commissions, are sort of boxing judges, really. So it's kind of and it's a boxing-based scoring system, so it's kind of obviously there's transferable skills in boxing, and as such there probably should be in the athletic commissions and the way it's sort of judged and refereed and that sort of thing. But it needs its own sort of unique rule set, because at the moment there's just so many dodgy decisions, and it's just it's a sport where you can't rely on the judges, and I guess you can't really in boxing either, but particularly in MMA, you just can't rely on the judges to make the right call. So, and it's a bit sad.
100%. It's gonna be one of those things that I think we're not really ever going to see a change in, and if we do, it won't be for like a long time.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take really, just for something to change, because it's like it's a big change to make, and it's going to take sort of mass adoption, right? Like all the commissions across the unified rules of MMA are going to have to sort of be amended, and all of the commissions are going to have to adopt it for it to really be practical. Otherwise, the UFC is going to be running events in different states in the US, and they're going to be scored completely differently. They're going to be under completely different rule sets in different states, which is just going to be chaos. Like, people aren't going to know what they're watching week to week. So it's something that would be a big amendment to make, and it's something that would have to be adopted by everyone. So it's hard to see how it gets over the line.
Yeah, no, and we've already seen that a little bit with even just them doing the new unified rules in certain parts and not in others. So, and then you're seeing fighters have performances where someone gets clipped and dropped, and under the new unified rules, that's a 10-8 round. But in another commission, it's not. It's just, it sort of depends on how the rest of it plays out. And then, that's already sort of a trip there in itself. You kind of you don't know what to expect. And then it makes it hard to understand, because last week you watched an event in one place and someone clipped someone and put them down, and it was a 10-8 round, and they won a pretty unanimous decision quite convincingly. And then you see another fight where someone drops someone, and Josh Kulabau's fight for example, drop an old mate and then having a judge give the other guy the round, shit like that still happens. Whereas if it's real weird. It's a real fucking shitty part of the sport that needs to be amended, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, but the debate's kind of fun though. Like in MMA, there's always just wide-ranging opinions on how fights should be scored. Everyone, so many people will score the same fight just so differently. It's kind of it's a fascinating discussion, but it is frustrating when that sort of difference happens among the professional judges. So hopefully something gets sorted out over time, and I guess that's part of the evolution of the sport as well. Hopefully that is a part of the journey moving forward.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it pans out as it goes, and where we're going to be 10 years from now or something like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's looking like it's going to be, much more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely in the near future. But we've got another question as well from _ Lima Kid on Instagram. I don't know if you got the if you got his real name. You did?
I did know it. And I even told myself, I was like, Damn it.
Yeah.
I will find out, and I will do a proper shout out on next week's episode.
Yes, apologies to _ Lima Kid. I think Lockjaw needs to go to the Dan Meehan School of rehearsing names pre-podcast, because this one obviously hasn't been rehearsed. But anyway, he asks, which Latin American fighters do you think have a promising career? So I think what he means is which Latin American fighters, up and coming fighters, look promising and have a big career ahead of them.
There's a few that stick out, but for someone that I'm going to sort of go with and sort of pick to be someone who's going to go far in the sport and do quite well, I'm going to go with Chito Vera, Marlon Vera. I reckon he's out there doing it already. The guy's out there just kicking ass and performing and going from strength to strength, and he's got potential to be quite great in the sport. So he's high on my list of just prospective fighters that are doing quite well at the top level of the sport. And even then, I kind of got to see a few of his fights on before he was in the UFC and stuff like that too. And the guy is just he's super talented. He's obviously game, likes to fight. And if people haven't already, go out there and find sort of interviews and chats with this guy where he sort of talks about his motivation behind fighting, some of the crazy stories he has about fights that he's taken, and everything in between. And it's the dude's, you can't help but not like the dude and just kind of want to see him do well. So I guess he's my pick. Marlon Vera is probably my pick for someone that's a Latin American fighter that's doing quite well and going to continue to do well and potentially go on to win a world title. He's sort of who I kind of lean towards.
Yeah, nice. And I was at, I don't know that, I feel like it might have been his first UFC fight. I'm not sure, but he fought here in Melbourne in the UFC. I think it was on the undercard, or it might have been on the undercard of Whittaker versus Brunson, maybe 5 years ago or thereabouts. Oh, yeah. Might be off on that, but I might have to fact check that after the fact. But it was his first fight. I think he won the fight maybe on split decision, but you could see that he was tough and he was a bit sort of rough around the edges, but sort of watching his progression ever since, it's sort of I think he was quite young at the time, and just seeing his evolution as time has gone on has been quite fascinating. He's really sort of evolved into a world class fighter. So I think Cheeto Vera is a good shout.
Yeah, and I feel like, obviously we've seen, we've seen a few other fighters that have come through the ranks a bit. And I guess Brazil counts as being part of Latin America too. So you're obviously going to see there's always been fighters from that part of the world that have done well. We've got a few Mexican fighters that are killing it at the moment as well, and continuing to do so. But like that, I still feel like that part of the world, we haven't really seen, the crazy amount of talent that we're potentially going to see in coming years. I feel like it's, when you look at a place like Brazil or America and that, you've seen people from over the years that have gone on to do great things, and you've seen like a consistent talent pool sort of come out of these places. But like with some of these other regions, and especially Australia and New Zealand, that like that's where just on the up at the moment, and you're kind of seeing that. But somewhere like Latin America, man, some of these places like Ecuador and some of these places are in that part of the world, there's fighters coming out of these regions that are just absolute monsters, and you're seeing them. Like, I mean, I watch all the random promotions and stuff too, and I'm seeing some of these people, and they're just, they're talented fighters, and they could potentially go on to do quite well at the top level of the sport. But it's just a case of they just need that spotlight, and when they start getting it, I feel like we're going to get a wake up call that, like everywhere in the world, that there's people just lurking that we're just not even, aware of at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And the UFC sort of, the spotlight's going to be sort of around that, always around that region. So, as more fighters come through, like Cheeto Vera and those sorts of guys and girls from that sort of region, the more the UFC is going to be compelled to look there when they sort of see these kind of gems coming from that sort of region. But I've got a couple of names I wanted to sort of put forward. One's a little bit from left field. I've got Fabricio Wonderboy Andrade was one that came to mind when I saw this question.
Yeah.
He's a Brazilian guy in one championship. I love one championship, right? So so Andrade just won. Wonderboy. He's he's been smashing people in one championship. He's only 24 years old. He's a 145 pounder over there, which is effectively bantamweight, because they obviously don't have the sort of same weight cutting protocols in one championship. But he's just fight on fight. He just gets better and better. He's full of confidence, really just powerful striker, and the sort of he's showing that he can grapple as well. So 24 years old. That's obviously very young in mixed martial arts. So he's got plenty of time ahead of him, and I think that guy's got a lot of potential. And whether that's just that sort of plays out in one championship, or whether he sort of makes his way over to another promotion, as time goes on, I guess time will tell. But I think in one championship, he's a real problem, and that guy's going to have a belt around his waist at some point.
He's a beast. He's got back-to-back body shot stoppages, I think, too. He's just at him melting dudes. Yeah, he's a problem. And I've heard nothing but crazy stories from my good buddy Trent Girdham about him, because they're obviously quite close. They're good friends. So yeah, he's told me that dude's an absolute monster, and is very well rounded too. So obviously, yeah, he's someone to keep an eye on. Then if you're watching one championship, and if you're not watching one championship, sort your shit out, because there's plenty of good fights and good fighters happening there.
Yeah, if you're not one of the 37 billion people that watch one championship week on week, then you should be. Watch out for Wonderboy Andrade. But another one I wanted to put forward was, and it's probably not technically an up and coming, because she is ranked number 5, but it's Alexa Grasso. She's in the UFC flyweight division. She is ranked number 5, so technically not an up and comer, like I said there. But she had some early hiccups in her career. She had sort of 3 losses early in her UFC career. She missed weight. She had trouble sort of with making straw weight. But she's 28 years old now, so she's sort of coming into her prime in MMA, and just her improvement sort of fight on fight has been really kind of fascinating to watch as well. Similar to Cheeto Vera, she's really just improved a lot. She's found a home for herself at flyweight, and now she's in her last 2. She's beaten Jojo Calderwood or Jojo Wood, sorry, and Macy Barber. So she's starting to sort of put some of those wins together, and I think she's got real potential to sort of to rise to the top of that flyweight division.
Yeah, she's another one. She's an absolute weapon. I like watching her fight. She's quite entertaining.
Absolutely, and yeah, we don't sort of see that many Mexican fighters sort of in the UFC. There is a sprinkling of them, but she's one of the ones that's really got an opportunity to sort of push towards title contention. So there you go.
I guess we'll give a little shout out to Tyler Santos, who just fought Valentina. I feel like she got robbed in that fight. There's a way that you can watch that fight, and we talk about it being subjective, and like you said, people are going to score fights a certain way, but fuck, man. Yeah, I can see. Look, I'm not mad at either girl winning that fight, but I for sure think that Santos could have been the winner of that fight, and she's another one. She's an absolute beast.
Absolutely, yeah. I felt like she was a bit stiff as well, and like you say, it's one of those fights where you probably can't complain with it going either way. It was close, but I probably I felt like she had done enough when when that final bell rang.
Yeah, so it's promising. It's promising across the board, especially shout out to all our listeners in Latin America. We love you. We appreciate you.
Yeah. If there is one, then let us know, because the demographics sort of suggest otherwise. But obviously now we're branching out. We're talking Latin American MMA. So it's a matter of time. Of course, I guess in Latin America there would be a market for for content on Australian MMA. Fight Talk Down Under would be something that would appeal.
100%. Honestly, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're not listening to Fight Talk Down Under, fucking sort your life out. Start doing it, because we always say this, and we've said this for the last 3 weeks, wherever we're at. Eventually, we're going to skyrocket through the stratosphere, and if you're not on board the rocket ship now, when it gets to that point, you're going to be kicking yourself. But man, I could have been there with those guys.
Absolutely, and what better way to start than with episode 24 next week? Of course, we're going to recap UFC 277 and all the fights we just talked about there, and we get to unpack what's going on there. We'll be previewing Rob Wilkinson's PFL semi-final, which is on next week. Might have a bit of a chat about Hex 23, which is also on next Friday. But until then, send us through your fan questions. The details will be below if you're watching on YouTube, at Dan Meehan MMA on Twitter, at Lockjaw MMA on Instagram. Of course, I've had the wrong Instagram handle for Lockjaw on the last 2 weeks there, so that's an editing fail there, but I will amend that this week. It's at Lockjaw MMA on Instagram, so if you want to get at Lockjaw. Otherwise, like and subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Fight News Australia, and iHeartRadio. So yeah, Lockjaw, what are you going to want to take us off with?
I'm obviously excited for what's ahead. Like, even regionally, in the regional scene, there's a few fights coming together. I've seen a few fight announcements that have been dropped recently for a bunch of different promotions. Obviously, we're going to address these all as they come up on future episodes. But fuck, man, there's some shit happening in the regional sort of circuit. There's some interesting matchups being put together. So I just want to sort of, I guess, reiterate that to people. Get on board, start paying attention to these fights, start supporting these promotions, because, across the board from an amateur level to the pro level, shit's just on the up. So yeah, get on the train, support these people, because by the time that some of these people get to that top level of the sport, you could have paid your 40 or $50 and stood there with a beer in your hand and watched them right in front of your eyes, and then it's going to get to a point where they're fighting in the top level of the sport, and you got to drop $200 a ticket to go see them. You don't want to be doing that.
I gotta watch it. You never know what might stop you. Here I am, climbing up.